Hey guys, it's Mandy as the Biocard 5 Vanguard deck profile, so if you guys enjoyed, don't like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we are covering another deck from DZ set 10, this time being the new Dragon Empire deck, Venatior. So, Venatior, whether if you're excited for this or not, is our official Takikaze main set deck line. AKA, unlike Gargarex and Spinal Marquis, who are specifically promos, this is the line that actually got a ride line, therefore actual support. I'm not sure how to feel about this, and neither, I'm pretty sure, majority of the fandom, because I think all of us really wanted this to be an actual dinosaur-themed deck and not, no offense to them, a deck built around by savages. However, it is unique that it's a savage ride line, since I don't think we had any of that in Takikaze in general before, so being able to have that now, I think is a cool thing. So let's get this start because honestly, this deck isn't that bad, and it gives Vargo one interesting hell of a card of a support. First today, we have our Generator. It's our ride deck crest. You want ride deck as your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you ride plus card to your crest zone for a second energy charge 3, continues to attack energy, I'll begin red face and charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy plus 7, draw a card. On pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every turn, you can second extra 3 on top of that, and if you end up having 7 or more energy, you can blast 7 of it to draw a card. This deck does have a energy user, however, Venatiors as a whole don't have cards that use energy, so this deck can very much change from place to place, where there are times where you won't use that energy generator in order just to use the skills of your generic cards, or there are times where you will use the energy generator because you have no cards in the deck that actually use energy. In this case, it's the former, but my point still stands. Moving on to our units, we have our starter in Venatior Rokora, grades of a boost by shows his K base. Honestly, he's so cute. I love how he just has his little bones ready for battle. Is that an eagle? No, that's not an eagle in the background. That's just how his mane looks with the rock. Anyways, auto road upon if I can draw a card, standard starter, and plus free draw if you go second. It makes any card you want. Another ride line requires Rokora. I just choose to make it Rokora because if it's the ride line's theme. Moving on, we have our Overtrig and Dragon DD King of Resurgence, Drag Veda, grades of a boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, Overtrigger in your deck, reveal that trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose what means get plus 1 for the turn, and reveal it during dread check, activate the additional effect which you get to choose your Vanguards and stand it. So it allows your Vanguard to do extra multi-attack, which is good because the Vanguard art has the ability to do extra drive, so being able to continue with those drive checks is good, along with being able to get a hell of extra power because of how the Vanguard works, and also guard restrict. All around nice to have for extra Vanguard pressure, though if you would like to have a different Overtrigger, I would 100% recommend Walnut, so this deck can have 4 attacks, so this would go to 5 attacks basically with Walnut, so I like Drag Veda a lot for that purpose, and that can be the Overtrigger. Moving on, we have our Draw Trigger in Fairville Dragon. Grades to a boost 5k shield, 4k base. Draw triggers guard circle. Opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 grade. Adds 5,000 to shield. So it's a 10k shield. You can run front triggers over this to add more numbers to the front row, or at least in this specific build, you could run the extra shield guarding front, but I would also recommend Parama for just shield value overall. But I chose to make it Fairville Dragon because this deck murders off its own rear guards consistently, and while there is a way to have rear guards on board before your Vanguard's drive check, I prefer Fairville to end up re-increasing the hand after you've pretty much board nuked yourself, even though you don't really have to worry about that in this version of the deck, though I still like to have it anyway. So 3 of Fairville Dragon, followed by 8 crit, 4 of them being Conduct Spark Dragon, grades of a boost, 50k shield, 5k base. You make this any crit you want, so to make a Conduct Spark Dragon because it was the closest thing I could find to a dinosaur, and 4 copies of Burning Flail Dragon, grades of a boost, 50k shield, 4k base. Give your trigger auto rear guard without a boosted, shove it to soul, choose a unit, give it 2k for the turn. So it goes to soul, it gives units 2k. Depending on your variant, you can choose not to run this in your Venatior deck, and to be fair with you, you might not want to run it in your Venatior deck anyways because it would disappear from the board. That would still run it anyways just for the sake of getting soul, because a lot of the cards in this deck do actually soul blast. So 4 Burning Flail to mitigate that, but depending on what you run in your version, you can afford to make this a vanilla crit. Moving on, we have 4 heals and White Light Dragon pair of soul lots. Grids of boost 50k shield, 5k base. You make this any who you want. I chose to make it this one because, this is the dinosaur themed deck. Might as well run the dinosaur themed trigger. Or, well, dinosaur themed in the sense that it's Takikaze. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 3 copies of Stealth Fiend Shenri. So grade 1 boosts 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard when it boosts anything. If your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, or you put it in order this turn, this unit gets 5,000 power for the battle, and at the end of the battle, shove the soul, draw a card. For those of you that know what half of the Venatior cards do, you're questioning why am I running a card that requires the opponent to have 1 or less rear guards. That's because that ability is not the one that we're trying to proc off, it's the order one, because this deck is based around a very specific Dragon Empire order, which we'll get to later. But basically, it allows you to have your 13k booster over here, who sends yourself to solo draw a card if you play her in the late game. If you play her in the early game, pretty much on grade 1, grade 2 turn, you got a consistent 13k booster, because more than not, your opponent's not going to call more than 1 rear guard to board. And if they do, well, you play your order to hopefully get board spam. That kind of already tells you what the order is specifically, or at least what else is in this deck as well. But also, you can use its skill to end up getting you draws and increase the hand, and also increase the soul for very specific cards that we'll go over later. So, Dear Shenri, all around, very nice card to have. She gets you soul, she gets you hand cards, cards, and she's a 13k booster as long as you play in an order / your opponent has one less rear guard, so not bad to work with. Moving on, we have the card that kind of tells you what this deck is based around. Demonic Dragon Nymph Jami. Great on boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard. When they attack, this unit boosted hits a Vanguard. Energy blast 3, choose an opponent's rear guard, kill it. No one in their right mind you would use a Nymph as an engine for a deck, let alone this. But I was like, okay, Venators call a board and murk it. What random thing can I think about that can make a board? First thing that came to mind were Nymphs. Or to be more specific, it was Latifah, but then I was like, okay, maybe I'll just use Nymphs because I don't think I've seen anyone use Nymphs before, and I'm kind of curious to see how they work. Realistically, don't. I'm suffering for you guys. It works with the way it's intended to, it's just not good, but on hit pressure with anything that it boosts to murk a rear guard is nice, and yeah. That's all I can say about it. You run it because it's a nymph for the engine. Then we have 4 copies of Guardian Monk of Raging Flames Mongju, grade 1 boost, 0 so 6k base, can change Central before Central's the deck. I'll put on guard circle, choose a rears, it cannot be hit in the bow. If your hand stream more cards, you card from hand is guarded. Standard PG, nothing but basically means if there's no winner cards in your hand plus on guard circle, you don't have to go great because that means you put cards in the early game. Basically spam Shenri and by just default spam Jamie. And then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw down Mongju, give them the middle finger, you'll be good to go. All around, very solid PG to have. It defends you when your opponent throws out really big numbers. As you can see in the fact that you want to board spam a lot, even if a lot of this deck's rear guards do come from deck, you still want to be able to board spam from hand as well. So when your opponent does eventually counterattack you when you're low on hand cards, Mongju, middle finger, you're safe. So very solid PG to have. You can make this Twin Buckler Dragon or Sparkle Rejector Dragon. They have the same skill as Mongju. I choose to make it Mongju though because it came out close to the time of Dinabarta's release, aka the Venatior grade 3. Moving on to our last grade 1 in the deck, one of the right deck, none of the main deck of Venatior Bunyip, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. I love his artwork, like how he's just like charging through with, those are kind of sickles and like his like wolf cloak, kind of like his old style clothing. It's just really cool to me, especially like how he's attacking and like all of these little lines around him. And it was auto rode upon by Aventure Marzus, the grade 2 of the right line. Reveal the top card of your deck and either call to rear guard if it's a grade 3 less unit card or discard it if it's not. If you discarded a card, soul charge 2. Okay, no matter what, you will always be calling that card because unless it's the order, you are superior calling it just for the sake of getting you a rear guard. And if you don't, I'm going to get you 2 free soul charges, but you don't need the soul that badly. So great that just is a free rear guard. And then act drop zone. If you have a grade 3 get a Vanguard with Venatior on the card name and you don't have another copy of this on the board, CB1 call to rear guard, so get 5,000 power for the turn. Okay, the deck doesn't have a lot of cards that use up CB in general, especially Venatior as a whole. So being able to call itself back from the drop zone is great, especially being a 13k as well. So that way, if you don't have anything that you can call behind and call in front of it, it can at least hit a Vanguard on its own, and it doesn't require the opponent to be a grade 3 either. So if you're really in a bad situation and your opponent's killing your board, and you just need to refill your field, Bunyip is your way to go. This happens a one of in the right deck, none in the main deck, because you don't really need in the main deck, since again, you can only have one of the, or you can only superior call one of them at a time from the board. And to be fair, once one of them ends up in the drop zone via soul blasting, which again, this deck does have a lot of soul blasters, you can get away with it pretty easily, so one of them in the right deck. Moving on, we have 2 copies of our very beautifully done order, and to be fair with you, it was mainly just the artwork that made me want to at least try to use the Nymph engine in this deck, and that is Wondrous Melodies. Grade 2, normal order, play up our Energy Blasting 2, check the top 5, choose up to 1 Normie with Nymph in the card name from one of them, call to rear guard, circle, shuffle the deck. So in this deck, there's only one card that this thing can actually target in hindsight, which I feel is wrong, but somehow I ended up doing that on accident, which pretty much you use it to try to get Jamie, because Jamie has on hit pressure, and if you don't, you shuffle it. I'm really starting to question how I got away with that, because I know I intended to build around the Nymph line, and somehow, oh yeah, no, I didn't fully do it, because a lot of the Nymph cards counteract each other to the point where it kind of wasn't worth it, but I got away with using like the one grade 1 that was kind of useful, and then Wondrous Melodies, because the normal order combos really well with Dragwood or Latifah. Grade 2 and stuff 5k shield, 10k base, auto plus on rear guard circle, other than by unit card's ability. If you play a normal order this turn, soul boss 1, check the top 5, just 1 card that's a grade listed to your Vanguard, call to rear guard circle if it's a unit card, and put it to your hand if it's normal order, shuffle your deck. Okay, here's the thing, this deck only has 1 grade 3 unit, and that's the main grade 3 itself. So 9 times out of 10, you can call it on grade 2 turn, you're probably going to get yourself a rear guard you're going to keep, or at least kill next turn when you're on grade 3. So you can pull this early off on grade 2 turn and not really whiff anything, and again, Melodies over here only cost 2 energy, so it's actually less than your constant 3 energy you get every turn, which is pretty solid. So combine those 2 with each other, that could possibly get you a total of 3 rear guards in 1 turn, because you know you get the one from Wondrous Melodies, you get Latifah herself, and then whatever Latifah calls, and then auto rear guard when she attacks into a grade 3 guardy unit, this unit gets 5,000 power for the battle for each of your opponent's open rear guard circle, so you commands it. So she'll get a total of +5, maybe +10, so a 20k swing, maybe with Jamie boosting her, she'll be at 28k. Not a bad swing, especially it does have on hit pressure, but it's mainly here just to force out numbers and to get board presence consistently, so that way Dinabarta can murk them a whole board in about 5 seconds flat and not feel bad about it. So for Latifah, good for maintaining board presence, which is what she's here for. And then we have 4 copies of Dragwood Fallheart. Great 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base, all in play on guard circle from hand or discard from hand while riding from the ride deck. CB1 energy bots you to draw a card. So as you saw, we don't really have that many cards that cost EB so far, only being Wondrous Melodies itself and Jamie, who realistically never goes off. And as for CB, well, as you saw, we also don't have many cards that cost CB so far, only being Bunyip and a handful of cards that do cost CB. So sometimes you won't use it, sometimes you will. Either way, being able to use it defensively and also just consistently as a ride deck discard to replace itself with a free hand card is good. And then auto in place on rearguard circle, if a persona of this turn, CB1 energy blast reaches a grade 1 without symptom from the drop zone, call it back a rearguard circle. All around, it's a pretty solid effect because, say for example, your opponent is board nuking you and you only have a persona ride left at the start of your turn and you have nothing else in your hand. You draw for turn, you draw Fallheart, you persona ride, you can draw again, doesn't matter what you draw. You can call Fallheart, use Fallheart skill, pull any grade 1 from the drop zone, probably Jamie or Shenri, depending on what you need. Then let's say you use Bunyip skill from the drop zone, so that way you have 3 rear guards, so at least pulling off Dinabarta's 3 rear guard kill effect, and then whatever your last hand card is, you can call it and automatically get the full effect of Dinabarta off. So not a bad card at all during persona ride turns and get you basically full recursion for the Vanguard skill for only either 3 EB or 1 CB, of which you get the 3 EB every single turn, and in that situation you're probably getting the 1 CB every turn as well. And it also is defensively consistent throughout the rest of the game, being a card that gets you a draw every time it's used for either guarding or discard from hand while ride decking. So for Fallheart, very solid grade 2 to have for the deck, but again, this deck can go depending on very different ways depending on what you want to run as your engine and what generic cards you want to run. Moving on, we have Lightning Legend Hermit Ryoto. For some reason, the card that directly searches the Nymph order is not a Nymph himself. So grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Auto plus on rearguard circle, CB1 to search your deck for up to 1 Wondrous Melodies, reveal it, put it to hand, and shuffle your deck. He does have a really cool art though. And then auto rearguard, when this unit attacks a grade 3, you get a Vanguard. If it's boosted by a Nymph unit, it gets 5,000 power for the battle. Okay, no offense to the Takikaze people, because we all know I've also been complaining to get a Takikaze ride line, but considering Nymph was revealed in the last main deck that was aka not like the side set, because you know every 2 sets there's going to be that third set that is just like a random Craycross Epic / Youthquake set. The last main set, so set 8, is when the Nymph cards got revealed. I feel like in this set they could have given Nymph an actual ride line. Again, no offense to the Takikaze players, because I love the Takikaze line too. I'm just saying it would have made more sense, but it is what it is. I digress from my point. Either way though, being able to pull the order from deck for a CB isn't that bad at all, especially because the deck doesn't really have too many cards that cost CB, and it's basically a 23k swing when it swings with Jami's boost. So not a bad grade 2 at all. Is mainly here for the Nymph engine that quote unquote exists apparently so far of Ryoto. I genuinely am surprised. I swear there were more Nymphs when I built this deck. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Spruce Cutter Dragon. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Contains rearguard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater of any kind, mind you, and you do not have other rear guards, he cannot be chosen or retired by your opponent's card effects. Varga Drawgress. Reason why I specify Varga and not any other grade 3 who that would be applicable to. Auto rear guard. When this unit attacks into anything, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 grade Aventure, it gets 5,000 power until end of that battle. So that part does require the grade 3 grade Aventure, so 15k swing. However, the third ability, Auto, when it's retired by the ability of your grade 3 grade Vanguard in general, not just specifically Venatior, if you do not have another copy of this on the board, CB1 call it to rear guard. Then if your Vanguard's a Venatior, it gets 5,000 power until the turn for each of your open rear guard circles. So in the Venatior deck, that's essentially a plus 20k plus the 5k it gets for the battle, so it's a 35k swing regardless of your persona or not, regardless of what grade 3 post Vanguard is, because none of its skill requires the opponent to be a grade 3, which is incredible. In Varga, it doesn't have the same power recursion that it would get from Shura, but it's basically Shura combined with Absurdity Glaive. And also it's a dragon that has a really cool like armor aesthetic. So I'm just saying Varga, if you're like on a budget and this is for some reason cheaper than Shura, because to be fair with you, it belongs to a very much worse deck than Varga. No offense to the people that love this deck. This is a possible replacement for it. Just saying it won't be as good, but it's an option. Either way though, it's a very cool card. The fact that it can't be retired or chosen by opponent's card effects is amazing. Not to mention the fact that it's always going to be a 35k swing when it dies, and when it's just swinging in general, it's a 15k swing with no requirements outside of you being a Venatior, and it just can call itself back regardless if you have a Venatior grade 3 or not. And again, like I mentioned before, his armor aesthetic is really cool. I like the dragon hair, I like the dragon armor. This is an easy 4 for me on the art alone, but the rest of the skill makes it worth it too. As for our last grade 2 in the deck, one of the right deck on the main deck, Aventure Marzus. Grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base. This is how you're going to get Bunyip in the drop zone. Auto rolled upon by a grade 3 card Aventure in the card name. Choose Aventure or Bunyip from your soul. Call that card and this card to your guard circle. So it has the ability that the Soraron and Astoria ride line have, where they can Spirit Call themselves. Not bad. Its ability is auto rearguard when it attacks. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 good Aventure, it gets 5,000 power for the battle. Yeah, that makes sense. Most of the cards that call from ride lines typically have a 5k skill, so it's not a bad 23k swing. It's fine. It gets you 2 rearguards automatically that you can kill off with Dinabarta, so you're pretty much always going to have that field recursion because you probably played Wondrous Melodies into a Nymph card and or Wondrous Melodies into Latifa last turn to guarantee that you got full board presence. So not that hard. That does pretty much guarantees that you're going to kill 5 units off the ability of Dinabarta over here. So it's a decent card. The one thing that I will say though, and I know Bushy does this a lot nowadays, like they've done this since I think set 6, even when Nirvana Jiva came out, is the fact they just say Venatior and not specifically Dinabarta or Dinabarta, which means that there is a very slim chance that, like how Astrola got an upgrade into Baiko Stellar, who was applicable via the Astrorail ride line, there's a chance we'd get an upgraded version of Dinabarta, who would be a lot better. Will this happen? Possibly soon? Hell no. Probably within the same time it took Baiko Stellar, which in hindsight was about 10 sets. So 10 sets from now, hopefully we'll get one. Though Eugene also waited 14 sets. And to be fair with you, I think everyone was pretty much banking on Eugene. I think the whole fandom pulled together for Eugene. So take that as you will. One of Marzus in the ride deck though, not a bad grade 2 because it again gets board recursion. And the last card in the deck is 3 of them in the main deck, 1 of them in the ride deck. Is that a moon in the background? If that's a moon in the background, I'll this card. If it's not a moon in the background, I don't care. And that is Aventure Dinabarta. I love how its art is so simple, where it's just like the guy crushing something with its sword, but then like the way the lava spills up and the clothing like kind of flows with the wind makes it look really cool to me for some reason. Anyways, grade 3 to 10% of 30k base. Act Vanguard once per turn. Soul Blast 1, check the top 5 to 1 grade to those unit card from one of them called to rearguard circle shuffle the deck. This is by every sense of the phrase Latifa if she was a grade 3. That is just an amazing ability. For a simple Soul Blast, every turn, no requirements to this. Call something from the top 5, and it's just a call grade 2 less unit card. Yes, there are times where you might have to call a trigger if you get really unlucky and see only triggers in PGs. However, this thing can never whiff, because this card is the only grade 3 in the deck if you can't tell, which means at most, if you somehow get unlucky enough for this to happen, 3 of those 5 cards could be grade 3s, but everything else is callable, so it's still not that bad. Moving on, Auto Vanguard. When it attacks into anything, no CB, no energy, no Soul Blast cost, retire 2 or more up to 5 rear guards on your board, and perform all the following according to the number of units retire for the cost. 2 or more. This unit gets 5,000 power to end a battle for each unit retired for the cost. So bare minimum is going to be a 23k base. If you do 3 or more, it's getting a total plus 15k, so 20k, and it gets plus 1 drive for the battle. Unfortunately, restricted for the battle, so it's not going to work with your Veda as well. And then 4 or more, if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, until end of that battle, when your opponent will call cards to hand a guard circle, they must call 3 or more at the same time. Actually, it straight up is Flagberg. It gets more numbers, and it technically gets the drive check. I mean, Flagberg got the draw, so you're getting the same amount of hand card recursion anyways, unless you see a draw trigger in that 3rd drive check. But I mean, so being able to get like the 3rd hand card is good. And forcing out 3 or more cards is a rare thing you see, especially on a Vanguard swing that already inherently has triple drive and a really good number stack to it that is already going to force out 3 or more cards. And the best part is that ability isn't once per turn, so if you do flip it off of Jag Veda, I mean, more likely than not, you're not pulling off the full effect twice, but I mean, that's a valid option if you want to do it. So though, being able to kill off a bunch of your board for literally no cost whatsoever in a deck that pretty much has a lot of board recursion, and if you build it a certain way, probably has like a lot of float and pop effects, gets a lot of numbers, gets drive checks, gets like guard restriction, and it's just one of the best rear guard call skills I've ever seen printed on a card that is inherently supposed to be on Vanguard Circle. All around, Dinabarta is not an amazing grade 3, but if I were to rank it on like just a general scale, it's 6 or 7 out of 10. Like, it makes a rear guard just for no cost whatsoever, essentially, and it has a lot of good offensive pressure. It just needs a better deck to actually get it there, because right now all it has is, you know, Spruce card over here, one other card of support that I honestly don't run because in my opinion it's not worth it, and then a bunch of random generics outside of the ride line. But without further ado, that's it for this one. I hope all of you enjoyed. Honestly, this deck, it's not good, but it has a lot of different things that it can do, and it has a long way to go before it gets good, but there's a lot of different ways that Bushy could support this, and if they do it consistently, or they just do what they did with, I forgot what deck it was, but there was a deck where like I don't think it was Bab, but Bab is like one of those examples where if it just gets like one really good set of support, it can start topping like crazy. They could do that. Or no, Endoglemma, because Endoglemma got really good before it got banned. So yeah, honestly, if they do it like that, this deck could possibly go somewhere. But they have so many different support that they could try giving this deck, or they could just make it a Eugene where they constantly give it good support and then it just slowly becomes that one rogue deck. So without further ado, see you all in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us on Twitch, and don't forget to set up your Vanguards.